Welcome to the Explainer. Today, we're going to flip the script on horse racing. Forget trying to pick the winner. What if the real pro strategy is all about hunting for the horse that's going to lose?
All right, so let's jump right in with this great quote from Matchbook Insights. If you've ever been to the races, you know it's way easier to look at the field and say, that horse has no chance than it is to pick the one that's going to win, right? Well, what if you could actually bet on that?
And guess what? Thanks to betting exchanges, you absolutely can. The strategy is called laying a bet. It's pretty cool, actually. You basically get to play the part of the bookie. The whole complex race with all those horses just boils down to one simple question for you. Will this horse win? Yes or no?
Okay, so how do you actually make money doing this? I mean, you can't just bet against any old horse. The real professional play, the smart money, targets a very specific type of runner. We call it the weak favorite. And this, right here, this is fascinating. Check this out. The data is super consistent, year in, year out. Favorites lose about 2/3 of the time. Just let that sink in for a second. The horse that everyone expects to win only actually does it about 35% of the time. Now, you see that big 65% number, and you might be thinking, easy, I'll just bet against every single favorite and I'll be rich. But whoa, hold on. That is a one-way ticket to an empty betting account. Seriously, the experts say that's pretty much one of the worst things you could possibly do. See, the pros play is much, much smarter. It's all about finding that weak favorite. So what is that? It's a horse that the market has just gotten wrong. It's overvalued. Its odds are way too short, meaning everyone thinks its chance of winning is high, but its actual real-world probability is much lower. Okay, so that's the million-dollar question, right? How can you actually spot one of these in the wild? How do you know if a favorite is the real deal, or if it's a weak one that's giving you a betting edge? Well, it's not just about a gut feeling. It comes down to math.
There's actually a pretty simple formula that acts like a litmus test for value. And to really get how it works for laying a bet, betting against a horse, we first got to take a quick look at how it works for the more common bet, backing a horse to win.
So this is the classic formula for backing a horse. You take your own estimate of its probability, you multiply that by the bookmaker's odds, and then you subtract 1. Simple. If that final number is positive, anything greater than 0, bingo, you found yourself a value bet to back. Okay, you ready for the clever part? For laying a bet, for our strategy, we use the exact same formula, but we're looking for the complete opposite result. We are hunting for a negative number. If the result is less than 0, that's our signal. That's a value bet to lay the horse.
So why negative? What does that even mean? Well, a negative result is proof that the odds are just too short. It's the math telling you that the bookie's price isn't high enough to reflect the horse's real chance of winning. And that gap, that imbalance, that's your edge. It proves the horse is overvalued, and that's the big flashing green light telling you to bet against it.
Now, the formula itself is pretty straightforward, right? But you probably noticed the most important part is your estimated probability. So, how in the world do you figure that out? Well, this is where you put on your detective hat.
Yeah, the pros don't just pull a number out of thin air. They dig in. They analyze a whole bunch of factors to get a much more accurate picture of a horse's chances. They're looking for things the average person might miss. Stuff like its recent form, how it handles certain ground conditions, the jockey, the trainer. All of these are critical clues.
Let's look at a perfect real-world example of just one of these little details. Take this horse, Pick and Sort. Its performance changes like night and day depending on if it's wearing headgear, like blinkers. With the headgear on, a solid 22% win rate. Not bad. But without it, 0. Not a single win in 16 races. Knowing a tiny detail like that gives you a massive, massive advantage.
So, where should you start your hunt for these weak favorites? A fantastic place to look is in really competitive races. The ones with a big field of horses where lots of them have a decent shot. When it's tough, even for the experts to price every horse perfectly, that's when mistakes are made, and that's your opportunity.
Okay, so let's tie this all together. It is so important to understand that this is not about finding some single, magical bet that's going to make you rich overnight. It's a completely different way of thinking.
Look, the big takeaway here is that laying weak favorites is a long game. It's a disciplined strategy. It's all about finding these small, repeatable edges and just playing the percentages again and again. You need smart bankroll management, and you need the discipline to stick with it. That's how you survive the losses that will definitely happen and actually make a profit over time.
At the end of the day, this strategy gives you the mathematical tools to see value where other people can't.
But, knowing the formula is only half the battle. The real question is, you've got the data to show you an overvalued horse, but do you have the discipline to actually play the long game?